Welcome to Season 2 of the Let's Talk podcast hosted by WellHouse Church, where we talk about what it's like to be a Christian Monday through Saturday, to be a person of faith in a culture against faith.
So let's talk about why Christians go to church. We're doing this Google prediction series, and I typed in why do Christians, and the first one came up was go to church. Seems like a reasonable question to ask.
There is a lot of money spent on Sunday morning church services. We could sit here and do the math. White evangelicalism is a $485 billion annual industry. It's not quite this simple. Oh, my calculator won't even go that high this way. I got to turn it to get to 485 billion. On average, 75% of that money is spent just to get Sunday morning services going.
Yeah.
Just to make them happen. That is $363.7 billion a year for people to, quote unquote, go to church in America.
Yeah. And this is something that I want to talk about. This is going to be one of the later episodes. We're going to do a mini series on this because it's a very good question, and it's layered. Because there is historical traditional elements to it that are important, and talking about the history of how it has progressed and changed is really important into understanding why we go to church. And so we're going to do several episodes on this, and one of the later ones that I want to do, we've kind of talked about before, but is why we do church the way we do.
Yeah.
Because we do church in a different way.
Yeah.
Because of those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to be a later down the road thing.
Well, it's partly because of those numbers. It's also partly because I think this reflects more of the New Testament model.
Yeah, which we're also going to talk about.
Yeah. But yeah, we do church a very unique way, and it was maybe 60% initiated by an economic problem that I saw.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all those things. But right now, I just kind of want to give a general reason why Christians go to church. And it's more of explaining why it's important to go to church. Fundamentally, there is a need for community. And I think that is why I say it's important to go to church. And largely why Christians everywhere go to church is for community. So I hear that argument all the time. Well, I don't have to find community in the church. I can go do that somewhere else.
Yeah. I hear people say that. I do hear people say that. And to some extent, they are right.
Yeah.
But here's something else, some new language that I've been hearing from some longtime Christians that are experiencing religious abuse or have experienced religious abuse and trauma and are in this deconstruction world. I spend a lot of time in those circles, and I'm a voice in those circles. There are some people that still go to church, not because they necessarily value church, but because church is the best experience of community when done right. When you are safe in a church community, there is no community like it. And Adam, the host of Practicing Presence, or the co-host, Pints and Perspectives, my best friend, he says that church is his country club. That he pays his tithe is his membership dues, and it is a place for community like no other, in which Jesus is some kind of guiding principle in that community. Yeah, which is what makes it safe. But that is how he views it. It is a country club membership,
and
because that church, that community experience is so important.
Having that is important because not only does it provide like emotional connection, and friendships and all the awesome things that come around with that. It also provides support systems if done right.
If done right, it is a support system and care network.
Because there is, and this was originally what the church was.
It was a care organization.
It was a care organization. It was like a group of people that cared for each other.
Yep.
That sometimes
oppressed people.
Yeah, oppressed people.
A group of oppressed people.
Yes.
Who cared for one another.
And that's that whole like, and they had all things in common language. So done well, done right. That's why. It's because it provides a safety in numbers.
Yeah.
And that's the other big piece, I think, is like that is hard to accomplish in the way that the modern church is established. But like, if they needed money, food, whatever, like they kind of all shared it.
Yeah.
And they made equal decisions on how like they helped each other. And that's what the money was. That was the commerce of the early church in a way.
Yeah, it also wasn't quite like that. Because remember, even in today's world, cash is hard to come by.
Right.
Money, capital, liquid capital that is spendable is hard to come by. And so actually what a lot of the common purse was like people offering their trade.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes.
Like it's like barter system. Like, hey, I'm a blacksmith. I can help people, like shoe horses and stuff. Oh, hey, I'm a farmer. I can help people out with some wheat if they need some. Like it like not all of the common purse is capital.
That's very fair. But like in the modern world, time is money.
See, it's a uniquely American construct.
Yes.
But yes.
And the place that we live,
that is primary metaphor is that time is money. And I hate it, but it is so true.
It's true. And it's hard to get around that.
The only way you get around it is if you convince everybody that our current work system is stupid and that it is not best to sell your time for money. Mm-hmm. You're never going to change an entire, like,
right.
You're just not going to change that.
So this is how I would talk about it. Is like, even in the modern church, taking your time to spend with other people and them doing that for you, right? Because that time is important in our system, in our society. That time is very important, and you don't get a lot of it. So choosing to spend those moments serving one another or just spending time with one another, that is one way that I would say that it would reflect where we're at in the, like now versus the early church, is because they would give of their time. It doesn't really work where we share resources anymore.
Yeah.
Because also those numbers,
yeah,
right? Like they're just not, largely the church is just not spending its money right.
Well, when you spend 75% of your money on a building and staff, there's just not much money left to go around.
No.
I mean, literally only a fourth of it, and you also haven't had any music. You haven't had discipleship. Yeah. You haven't done anything. And so what ends up happening is literally, on average, 91% of that $485 billion goes for the church to serve itself. Mm-hmm. And only 9% goes to actual justice initiatives, to meeting real needs in the community. Mm-hmm. And that's just laughable to me.
Yeah.
It's appalling to me.
Yeah, like we've talked about before, the church is a beast that feeds itself.
It is a machine, and you must feed the beast.
Yeah. It's pretty terrible.
That's
but-
how it exists today.
Correct. But even though that is like big capital C, there is still community in that that you can find and that you can build.
Well, see, that's the local church.
Right.
The lowercase c, the
Correct.
local, the unique grouping of people
Yes.
that gather together and call themselves Christians.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is truly church.
Absolutely.
That is what people do and go to. When
Yeah.
when Google asks, why do Christians go to church or do church? That's the question they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
They're not asking about institutional capitalism church.
No, absolutely not.
They are asking about local people gathering together weekly for the purpose of worship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way in which you answer the question, what does it mean to worship, will dictate
yes.
what your church experience looks like.
Well, it's like we've been talking about on Practicing Presence, creating community and culture at the same time.
Yeah.
And how like they're really two sides of the same coin. Or like a chicken and the egg thing,
Yeah.
So like you end up having communities that do this, this church thing. But it looks very different. And so it doesn't flow with everybody just right. You know what I mean? I've spent time in a lot of different churches, and a lot of different kinds of churches. I'll tell you something, a little hint. None of them fit right. And even to some extent, like sometimes WellHouse doesn't seem to fit right.
Yeah.
Just because like the church is ever growing and people are constantly changing, and so is like society. And so your groups and your communities are going to change, and it's going to fluctuate and flow with society. That's actually one thing that Catholics say is why they are so long-standing. And this is probably true, is because it doesn't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow with society. And, there might be some element of truth to that being true for them.
Yeah.
But it's also another reason why people are running away from it.
Well, yeah, it's because when those people change, voices should change.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is we don't allow space for those new voices to come up and speak.
Yeah.
We don't allow space for their ideas, for their expressions, and we continue to try to control it or hold it or maintain it the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And we end up isolating people when we do that.
For sure. And so like we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, if you've been around long enough, we were not fans of the current state of the church. And that's largely why people don't go to church. Like if we're going to talk about why people do go to church, there needs to be some element of like why people don't. Because if you go for the community, what happens when the community's not there? People leave.
Yeah.
And people leave hurt, hating the church, going to seek community elsewhere. Because people need community. In some way, shape, or form, they go find it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's in good spaces, maybe it's not. Maybe it's healthy community.
Maybe it's not.
Maybe it's not.
Unfortunately, lots of times it's not.
Yeah.
Well, and I follow an entire Instagram account called the Roy's Report. Julie Roy's. She's an investigative journalist reporter that reports on church abuse.
Yeah.
She has daily stories that she runs, sometimes multiple stories a day, on leaders abusing people. There's good reason that people leave hurt.
Mm-hmm.
There's grounds for people leaving hurt.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a machine.
Mm-hmm.
You must feed the beast.
For sure.
And if a woman comes up and says, hey, I have an allegation that this dude was inappropriate with me, and he's important to feeding the beast, yeah, of course it gets swept under the rugs with NDAs and money.
Yeah.
That's wrong. That's wrong. And it's because we have to feed the beast.
It is absolutely wrong. But that is why people don't go to church. Other than like just true not believing it, right? But that's why people don't go to church. But why people do
is to worship.
Is to worship in community with other people.
Yeah.
And community is worship.
Yeah, a good argument exists for community being a form of worship.
Right.
Fellowship.
Absolutely. There's no question. But that's really what it is. It provides you a support system that wouldn't exist otherwise. It gives you access to a whole new network of people. And if the church is doing it right, to an institution that can help you.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this to be a very long episode, and I think I'm about to wrap up by just kind of reminding that while the church does kind of suck, and while we do say very mean things, but also very true things about the church, it's because we do love it and we do see it as a good thing. And so being a part of church, attending a church, we do see as important. Whatever you want to slap the label on as church, cool. Just do it. Because it is a good thing. Don't be afraid of it. I understand why a lot of people are. But it is good.
It can be good.
Yeah.
And when done right, it is good. It is healing. It is wholesome. It is beautiful. And it is life-giving.
Absolutely.
That is what I would say is, why do Christians go to church? It's because church is a life-giving thing when done right.
Yeah.
It is a life-giving thing.
Absolutely.
And it enriches your soul.
Absolutely.
If it's not doing that, we're doing it wrong.
Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk podcast hosted by WellHouse Church. Be sure to give us a rating and a review if you enjoyed the episode. It's free and it helps us immensely. Also, feel free to check out our other podcasts.